Hi, before I begin today's video, I want to give a shout out to a Black booktuber, and today I want to give a shout out to Roy from Roy's Book Reviews. He only has 29 subscribers, so definitely go check out his channel. He does a lot of book reviews. So far, that's mainly what I saw on his channel is book reviews. And he reads a variety of books, so you may find a book there that you may be interested in, so definitely go check out his channel, give him support. There's not that many black guys on the platform, but I'm glad that I found another one to support, so definitely go give his channel a watch. I'll leave links down to his channel and where else you can find them on social media in the description box below. Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and today I'm doing a video on the Great Migration. This is part of my Topics in Black History video series, and you can see, if you want to know more about this series, you can find, look at my announcement video, and you can find out what this series is all about. The topic today, the Great Migration, was inspired by the short story Uncle Wellington's Wives, and it was written by Charles W. Chestnut. Charles W. Chestnut was born in 1859. He became one of the first commercially successful black writers in the United States, and he wrote novels, short stories, and a biography on Frederick Douglass, and just all around great writer that paved the way for many other African American writers after him. The short story Uncle Wellington's Wives is about this man in the South who decides that he's going to leave his wife and go up north to seek better opportunities, and along the way basically marries other women and kind of turns his back on his old life, but at the end of the day ends up having to crawl back to his home back down south. The Great Migration, what was it? What was it all about? So the Great Migration is a movement of African Americans in the United States from the South to the North and to the West. Now, the Great Migration happened in two waves. There were two waves. So the first wave was from 1916 to 1930, and the second wave was from 1940 to 1970. Now, the reason for the first migration was one, the boll weevil had destroyed cotton crops in the South and thus had destroyed that industry. So there were, of course, less opportunities there. Also, the Great War, or the First World War, had opened up a lot of jobs because there was a labor shortage because men were fighting in the war. So that opened up a lot of opportunities outside the South for African Americans to fill those jobs. Basically, they needed cheap labor and African Americans could provide it. Also, there was a lot of violence in the South as well. So after Reconstruction, blacks began to be more assertive about their political rights. However, unfortunately, whites did not like that, and that led to a lot of racial violence, Jim Crow, which led to restrictive and violence-filled lives for many blacks in the South. So they saw this as a chance to move on to better, basically greener pastures. However, people in the South did not want them to leave, which is, you have this dichotomy between, like, kind of, we don't really want you here, but at the same time we need you here to fill in these jobs. So when African Americans began to leave the South in large numbers, the whites there began to come up with tricks to keep them there. So if you go to the train station, would be arrested for vagrancy, or they would just tear up your train ticket. So blacks had to find and come up with ways to escape the South in order to get to places of bigger opportunity. And sometimes companies would come down and they recruit African Americans. Actually, the Pennsylvania Railroad recruited, I think, about 10,000 African Americans and moved them up north. But the South, some states and places did not make it easy for recruiters to do that, and they had to pay hefty fees or have like 10 or so recommendations in order to legally do so. But blacks began to leave and leave in large numbers, and they either went up the East Coast into the Northeast states, or they moved from places like Alabama, Mississippi into the Midwest, or they even went out further west into states like California. So as African Americans moved up north and into these cities, they were able to have political voice. For example, in places like Chicago, politicians there had to take into account the black vote because there were so many of them, and they could, depending on which way they swing with the vote, influence elections. And so this gave African Americans a chance to actually have a political voice. That, however, did not mean that everything was good. Just because they were escaping, lynching and violence in the South did not mean that everything in the North was good. There was a lot of racial tension that was caused by the suddenly influx of African Americans and taking taking the jobs, and basically competition now was not just between whites for jobs, but was also between African Americans and whites for jobs. So that was the cause for the first migration. The second migration happened after World War II. Once again, there were huge opportunities for African Americans, and so they moved out of the South and into the North and to the West, so looking for jobs and greater opportunities. Before the Great Migration, 90% of African Americans were in the South. By 1970, 47% of African Americans either lived in the North or had lived in the West. And people were able to take advantage of the opportunities presented by the Great Migration, include people like Richard Wright, Zora Neale Hurston, Bill Russell, and even the children of those people who initially did that move to the North, such as Michael Jackson, James Earl Jones. They were able to have opportunities and become who they are and who we know today because their parents moved with them north. Today, however, the trend has changed, and more blacks are actually moving down south. They're moving to north and west, and there are many different reasons for this: tax breaks, more industrial jobs, familial ties to the south, and seeing like some of the outcome of this, we've seen that Atlanta has now replaced Chicago as the second largest metro city with the most blacks after New York City. So that is the Great Migration. I myself am the child of one who participated in the second wave of that Great Migration. So I'd like to thank my grandparents for moving up here and gaining the opportunities that I was able to get here. My mom as well. So are you a child of the Great Migration? Did your parents or grandparents move from the north to the south? Were they always here in the north? If you live in the north or the west, what was their story? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at GhostReads28, on Instagram at Justin the Ghost Reader, and also on Goodreads. The link to that is down in the description box below. And as always, keep reading.